Now for the bar, instead of using just the pen tool, I'm going to have you guys use the rectangle tool, kind of cheat a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to recreate the rectangle first that's inside this bar. So the bar is basically just a bloated rectangle. So we're going to go in this corner, click and drag it all the way down to this bottom right corner. And I have this stroke set at 2 point, if you're wondering. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the pen tool, but instead of using the pen tool, we're going to use the add anchor point tool. And what we're going to do is add another anchor point in between each of the sides right here. And if you have your smart guides on, it's nice because it tells you the middle part of this segment. So I'm with this tool, the pen tool with a plus sign. And the shortcut is the plus sign on your keyboard. I'm going to click right there. So I just added an anchor point. I'm going to go on this side, add an anchor point, add an anchor point on this side, add an anchor point on this side. Now I'm going to take the rect selection tool, that white arrow, and I'm going to select each one of those new anchor points that we just made. This top part right here, start with this, and I'm going to drag it just slightly up. The one on the side, I'm going to drag it slightly to the right. This left side, I'm going to push it more towards the left side. But make sure you keep that guideline on there. If it's off like this and it's off like this, that means it's not in the same or riding on the same axis. And lastly, let's bring this one down. So as a result of that, by adding those 4 extra points, you should have something that looks more of like a coffin-based shape right here. And because we need to soften it, we're going to go back to the anchor point tool and then use these new anchor points as our stretching anchors. So I'm going to click and drag, and you can hold shift so that it constrains a vertical or horizontal axis. I'm going to click and drag, and notice I'm not dragging too much so where it bows out this way. I'm just clicking and dragging so that it takes away from the sharp corner there, and at the same time it hugs this shape right here. Click and dragging, and then there is your bar right there. Okay. Now the worst is the worst. So the worst, what we're going to do with the worst is we're going to create this with the shapes again. We're going to start with the rectangle tool, like so. And then we're going to use our ellipse tool, like so. And then what you're going to do is hover your ellipse tool until you see this pink or magenta guideline. And then you're going to create a perfect circle. So you're going to click and drag until you lock into the very right side the very right segment of this rectangle, and it should be path on there, so that your circle, the widest part of your circle, is as wide as the widest part of this rectangle. And I'm going to use my black arrow to move it around, and I'm going to use it also to put the center, line this up so that it looks like this. Okay, so that's going to serve as this part of the worst. Now because the bottom part is also rounded, I'm going to take that and I'm going to copy it. Quickest way is to hold Option and Shift so that it stays on the vertical axis. And I'm going to repeat the same thing and line it up so that it intersects. Now I have this shape. Now I'm going to select all of them. And then this is where, if you haven't done the Pathfinder, this is your Pathfinder window right here. this is where you're going to need this. So we're going to combine all of these shapes. So instead of having 3 shapes, like so, we're going to select this, and we are going to combine it. You can combine it by clicking on this Unite icon right here on your Pathfinder window. So I'm going to click on it, and then it makes that into one shape. So now it looks more like the Wurst, except it doesn't have that curve to it. So this is how you add this. You select the shape that you just made. You go to Effect on the top menu. You go to Warp, and you click on Arc. If you remember this from Photoshop, then you were paying attention. And instead of horizontal, which is what it would pick normally, you're going to pick vertical. And then you're just going to play around with the amount of vertical percentage that you're going to apply onto this shape. Now we're going to try to get this as close as you can, but look what happens to the edges of this thing if you overdo it. So there, just apply this ever so slightly until you get the shape that you want, and then click OK.